Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I am your host, Dean Whitman, and I want to know why you didn't help out with Thanos. Seriously, I didn't see you there. There was all those portals, and you didn't show. What's up with that? All right, folks, this has been a pretty interesting week for Marvel Studios. I mean, we started the week off with the the red carpet world premiere of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And that led to not only the discovery that Sir Ben Kingsley was going to be in the movie, most likely reprising his role as Trevor Slattery. Ole, 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 ole. But also, the response to it has been so over the top good. I mean, I've seen critics online who are normally very reserved, they downplay everything. These guys are coming out talking about like it may be one of the best Marvel movies ever. It's the best Marvel origin story. It's being compared to Black Panther. I mean, it's almost gushing. And you could tell that Marvel's pretty confident in it for the simple fact that normally they'll put an embargo, and there's an embargo on the actual full reviews. But after a premiere like this, and there's a bunch of showings going on this week, which I still haven't been invited to, Marvel. Love to go to one. Anyway, they went ahead and said, oh, yeah, you could put your initial reactions online. Go ahead and tell people what you thought about it. I mean, don't go into the in-depth reviews, but you can put your initial reactions. And with the fact that they're coming out and letting everybody put their initial reactions out, 2 weeks before the movie comes out? More than 2 weeks? That's pretty crazy. That means that Marvel has huge confidence in this movie. I saw one reviewer who basically equated it to being part mystical epic, part Shakespearean drama, and part martial arts spectacular, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon type thing. And he'd actually seen it twice and is just absolutely still gushing over it, talking about how he wants to go see a third time. So just to have that kind of start to the week was pretty good. Then there was word that Anthony Mackie has signed a contract to play Captain America in Captain America 4. So we knew we had heard about that. Marcus Spellman is supposed to be writing it. Great news that the head writer for Falcon and Winter Soldier. So that's moving along. Well, a bunch of other stuff is coming out now, too. I mean, I was pretty certain that today I was going to be talking about this absolutely phenomenal episode of What If that dropped Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, that was going to be the only topic for today. And then about midnight last night, Marvel went, oh, here's another Eternals trailer, the final trailer. I woke up this morning, people who barely follow Marvel are texting me going, have you seen this trailer? Oh my God. I had one person who seems to be pretty burned out on comic book movies sent me a post with the link saying, I want to go see this. It's like, okay. So I had to get up early and watch that. And then there was a bunch of other news today. So Marvel is just cranking stuff out right now. It's almost like it's Marvel's world and we just live in it because it's just flying along here. Now, some of the news that just dropped today, one of which we're going to start with is actually comic-related news because I don't do as much as I should be doing more comic-related news. I tend to stick with the pop cult, the movies and stuff because that's the bigger news, the more general news. But this has kind of a tie-in. The next live action series, of course, from Marvel is going to be Hawkeye, where not only do we see Jeremy Renner return as Clint Barton, but we're going to get introduced to the character of Kate Bishop, who will be played by Haley Steinfeld. And they're putting it out at the same time. They're putting this comic out version. Let me restart that. Marvel has announced, Comics has announced today that they're going to put out a 5-part miniseries called Hawkeye, which stars Kate Bishop as the character. Now, this is coming from YA author Marika Nijkamp. I'm sorry, but I've not actually come across her name before spoken, so I just can only do my best to pronounce it. But she's going to be joined by artist Enid Balam, and they're going to do this 5-part series where Kate returns to New York after spending time in Los Angeles, operating as Hawkeye, both on her own as co-leader of the West Coast Avengers, alongside the other Hawkeye, Clint Barton. Kate will be invited to solve a mysterious jewelry heist at a resort, which will serve as a perfect confidence boost for the young hero, despite it being almost definitely a trap. Now, the series is going to have covers by artist Janoy Lindsay, and the first issue is slated to drop in November, right around the time of the TV series' debut. The TV series debuts on November 24th, and the first issue will come out in November as well. So if you're looking to get your fill of Kate Bishop, you're going to get a lot of it coming up this November. Now, that's not the only news from younger characters in the MCU. Today, we've learned that Dominic Thorne, who is the actress who'd been picked to play Riri Williams in the upcoming Disney Plus series Ironheart, is actually going to make her debut in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Now, if you're wondering, well, how did you hear this news? Well, it turns out that's directly from Kevin Feige. Kevin is running around doing press tour for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And he dropped this little news bomb. And he said, we're shooting Black Panther: Wakanda Forever right now. And the character of Riri Williams, you will meet her in Black Panther 2 first. She started shooting, I think, this week before her Ironheart series. Now, if you're not familiar with Ironheart or Riri, she's a 15-year-old engineering genius who gets accepted to MIT and goes about building her own Iron Man-style armor. Now, after using it to rescue a couple people, she gets contacted by Tony Stark, and he kind of becomes a mentor to her and kind of gives her the seal of approval to be an Iron Man type character. And this all happened in Invincible Iron Man #7 back in 2016. Well, yeah, and in the comics, she's closely tied to the Iron Man franchise, but with the MCU, Tony Stark is dead. So it makes a lot of sense that they're kind of shifting her over to the Black Panther franchise, because then you can almost have that mentor figure being Shuri, who is also a young genius, probably the smartest character in the MCU, which would be a perfect mentor figure and sounding board and friend for Riri. So I love the fact that they're connecting those two characters, or they're connecting the Wakanda world and Ironheart. So we'll have to see. Now, there's one other bit of news, and that has to do with the upcoming Moon Knight series. And again, it's just like all of a sudden everything is Marvel. So you would think that after his turn as Apocalypse, Oscar Isaac may have gone, okay, I've had enough of the Marvel characters. But the Dune and Star Wars actor told Total Film this week that he was interested in doing Moon Knight with Marvel Studios because it's not so much about the genre of things, it's the people. And is there room to do something interesting in it? And sometimes there is, and you think there will be. And sometimes it turns out there isn't. I love the people involved. I thought there was an incredibly unusual story to tell within the world of, the superhero language. But we're making something that's quite different. And that doesn't follow the same, not necessarily even logic of what a lot of superhero films do. I think because of that, I just found an opportunity to do something that I've not done at all yet, and to have a lot of creative collaboration with the rest of the people making it. So it sounds like what drew him to Moon Knight is the uniqueness of it. And I mean, you're talking about a character with multiple personalities, ties to the Egyptian mythology, and a lot of people equate Moon Knight to to basically being Marvel's version of Batman. I don't. I actually did a video about it last year to stop calling Moon Knight Marvel's Batman, because he's more, if you're going to equate him to any other character, it would be the Shadow. I mean, the multiple personalities, the shifting, the connections to mythical level origins. He's very much more the Shadow than he's ever been Batman. So keep that in mind. And while we don't know much about the series, I know there's been a couple casting, but overall, the plot of this has been completely kept under wraps. But we do expect that we're going to get to see Moon Knight sometime in 2022. So now that wraps up the basic news for the day, basic Marvel news. What we're going to do now is, we're not sure this is going to work, but JD is going to try to run the trailer that dropped at midnight last night for the Eternals. It's what they're calling the final trailer. And we're still a couple months away. I mean, November 5th is when it debuts. So we're still over 2 months away from the film coming out, but they're calling this the final trailer. So JD, go ahead and try to run it, and then we'll talk about it.
Five years ago, Thanos erased half of the population of the universe. But the people of this planet brought everyone back with a snap of a finger. The sudden return of the population provided the necessary energy for the emergence to begin.
How long do we have?
7 days.
We're Eternals. We came here 7,000 years ago to protect humans from the deviants.
Why didn't you guys help fight Thanos? Or any war, or all the other terrible things throughout history?
We were instructed not to interfere in any human conflicts unless deviants are involved.
By who?
We need to find the others.
I haven't seen some of them for centuries.
Hi.
Hello.
If this is what the end of the world looks like, at least we have front row seats.
You know what's never saved the planet? Your sarcasm.
We've loved these people since the day we arrived. When you love something, you protect it.
You can't protect. Any of them.
I bet you've built the perfect safe house. And what's this even made of? Vibranium?
Fall collection. IKEA.
All right. So if you hadn't seen that, you got to see it now. There is so much to take out from this this trailer, because I think the first big thing to come out of it is they specifically address the question that a lot of people have been asking, which is, where have the Eternals been? Where were they during Thanos, or the invasion of New York, or Ultron, or all of these big battles, or even some of the smaller ones? Where were they? When Caecilius was wiping out Hong Kong and all the sanctums? Where were the Eternals? Why didn't they get involved? And it comes out, they pretty much straightforward tell you that they were not supposed to interfere. Their job on Earth is to protect humans from the deviants. And if you're not familiar with the Celestials, and those are the big, huge creatures, the like almost robotic looking creatures, there's a lot of ways you can describe the Celestials. They're these giant cosmic beings that we've seen throughout the MCU before. In Guardians of the Galaxy, there's the one that uses the Power Stone to wipe out a planet. The Collector shows us that. Nowhere, the big floating head in space, that is a Celestial, which kind of gives you an idea of how big they really are in scope. And they go around the galaxies and they do these kind of experiments. They'll take a race of beings and they'll experiment on them and then leave them like a petri dish to see what happens. And sometimes they experiment them into 2 or 3. The Kree and the Skrull are supposedly celestial, a split. They were from the same area, and they genetically gave one the ability to shapeshift and whatnot, and the other ones they didn't. On Earth, and again, this is pulling from the comic lore. We don't know how they're going to do it in the film, but in the comic, Celestials came to Earth and they took humans and they made a perfect version of them, the Eternals that were Guardians, and then they created the Deviants. But I think they did in reverse. They did the Deviants first. But the idea is that they're offshoots of mankind. And the Eternals were kind of meant to clean up after the Deviants. And they've been fighting for all these years and stuff. And that's why Selma Hayek's character of Ajax talks about how they've been there 7,000 years. And Gemma Chan's character of Cersei is saying that we were instructed to not interfere unless it was the Deviants, because that's what they were there for. They were put there by the Celestials. And I think that's going to play a big part in what's going on. Now, the other thing they get to is that opening conversation where she's talking about how the snap and the returning of all those people created the energy for, and I wrote the term down, the emergence. Now, there is a Neil Gaiman run on the Eternals that is probably the most popular of all the runs on the Eternals. And in it, it's discovered that a Celestial was birthed into planet Earth and is growing inside the planet. And when he wakes up and leaves, it basically will destroy the planet. And I'm wondering if that's what the emergence is. Maybe there's a Celestial inside of Earth, and the snap and the undoing and all of that has awoken him. And now they've got 7 days to try to stop him from awakening. And basically destroy the planet. Because, again, Celestials are huge. So if he comes out of the core, it's probably going to destroy the very Earth. So that, I think, is a possibility. We see 2 other Celestials in here. And most likely, now, some of these names probably aren't going to mean a lot to you. But if you are a fan or if you want to look them up, the red Celestial we see is most likely Erishim the Judge. And then we see one later on that's a green Celestial, and he is most likely Jemiah the Analyzer. And the judge is the one that comes along, according to lore, and decides if a race is worth continuing, if the experiment is worth allowing to go on, or they just wipe the planet and start over again. So there's a lot to unpack in that trailer. But again, we don't know how much Marvel is going to embrace and how much they're going to throw out. The original The Eternals were created by Jack Kirby, and Kirby had done a lot at Marvel, and he had some ideas for characters and whatnot. But it was at the end of his run where things were starting to turn sour with him and Stan and with the company, and he wanted more control. He wanted to do more things himself. He wanted credit for more things. There was a lot of credit that went to Stan only because Stan became the figurehead for the company, and it just kind of all fell to Stan. But it wasn't right. And Jack felt slighted by that, and he ended up going over to DC. When he went to DC, he created the New Gods with Darkseid, who we've seen recently in the Justice League movie. Darkseid and Desaad and Steppenwolf, and there was this whole, and there's Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. These are all characters that have since gotten better play, but he went over and did what they call the Fourth World Saga, and it didn't really sell as well as they had hoped, and they kind of forced him to cut it off early, and in doing that, he didn't get to tell the story he really wanted to tell, so he ended up going back to Marvel. And when he went back to Marvel, he still had this desire to do this big cosmic epic of New Gods. And when he came back to Marvel, he created the Eternals. And the Eternals and their mortal enemies, the Deviants. And one of the things that I really like that Marvel is doing is that in the comics, the Deviants were all very humanoid looking, but they just had maladjustments. They had different color skin with, some of them had like 4 eyes or double mouths, or just they still fit the humanoid build, 2 arms, 2 legs, body, roughly. But they were deviants, and Thanos himself is an eternal. Again, in the comics, I don't know how they're going to deal with it in the MCU, but he's an Eternal with the deviant gene in him. That's why he's, looking like Grimace. He's purple with the ridged chin. So most of them looked. Thanos is the typical type of deviant that we got in the comics. Here, they're much more demonic looking, creature looking. They're not straightforward, just humanoid. We do see what I think is going to be Crow, one of the head deviants, in that scene with Athena, the Angelina Jolie character. So there is, so maybe there will be some humanoid looking ones, but even he wasn't that humanoid looking, and he was huge. In the comics, Crow, and he's just another standard sized person. So, but some of the things that really jumped out at me in this trailer was the use of the power, that all of them had that gold signature to their power, showing that their power comes from the same place as a cosmic background, similar to Captain Marvel. But it shows they're all tied together. But the actors they've chosen for this are all very different. You have Salma Hayek, her Latina heritage. You've got Gemma Chan. You've got Brian Tyree Henry, Kumail Nanjiani, Lauren Ridloff. There's all these very different races and nationalities, and everybody is using their own accents too. So Richard Madden has a very thick brogue going on, and then Kit Harington has you've got all these different accents going on, and it just shows how international this group is, how they're from everywhere. They represent all of humanity in a sense. And I really like that. Ma Dong-seok as Gilgamesh, Leah McHugh as Sprite. It's just a very different look to everybody. But again, and they're kind of leaning into it. I don't think Barry Keoghan actually spoke at any point, so I don't know if he's got an accent of any kind. I don't even know much about the actor, but as Druig. So it's just an interesting feel to it. These characters, there's a homogeneousness, that's a good word, to the Avengers. There's a couple that sound like they're English, but otherwise they all sound American. They all sound white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It's just, they started expanding it out with T'Challa, and we're going to get this with Shang-Chi. We're going to get a bit more national or international, but the Eternals are big time international, and I'm looking forward to that. But also the feel of the movie. I know Chloe Zhao wanted to film a lot of this practically, get it in camera instead of just counting on CGI. But what we're looking at is amazing. So if a lot of that is just practically shot, damn, that's going to be pretty weird, pretty cool. I do like the way the powers are working. I love the setup and just the scope. And like I said, it feels epic. It feels different than the other Marvel movies. And I think it's going to be a good movie. But I think we're only getting bits of it. I think they're doing a good job at not giving away too much. There's a lot of speculation online that there might be a traitor in the midst of the Eternals, that they might end up going against each other, a lot of stuff. And I don't know if any of that is true. That's just the speculation online. But that's the point, is we really don't see too much. Between the first trailer, which really just focused on introducing 10 different characters? And then now we get the tie-ins to the Celestials. We get more of Dane Whitman. We get the Deviants. We get a better idea that they've only got this almost biblical, like 7 days to save the planet. So we've got the stakes and more of the characters here and how it all ties together. But we really didn't get a whole lot of spoilers, which I think is awesome. You're going to be able to go into this movie mostly, and even if you know the Eternals from the comics, you kind of have to put all that aside, because this isn't the comics. This is the MCU. This is where they do things differently, and they make it all work together in a cohesive universe. So we get references to other things like the Snap, but this is going to be its own entity. So I am really looking forward to this. Probably more excited about it now than I have been in a while. So between Shang-Chi coming up, what they're doing with What If, and then going right into the Eternals, and then Hawkeye, man, this is a great time for Marvel right now. But all right, we are coming up to the halfway point. So we'll pop over to a commercial, and then when we come back, we will talk about What If Episode 2. Be right back.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Thursday night, and we're closing down the experience for the night. We are the final show, and then tomorrow we'll pick up with some great... I don't know what the hell's on Fridays. I get the day off, so there's some great stuff on Fridays, including Nick Barucci will be on with some great collectibles, so you want to pop in for that. But now I have no idea what's on Fridays, so... I'm a horrible shill for the network. All right, let's kick off with we got that spoiler video, spoiler thing, spoiler. All right, I love that. That's just so cool. Okay. Brian, the chat says, episode 2, what if genocide were a running gag? And you know what? That is really accurate. This was, I loved the first episode of What If, and this one was better. This one was them doing what they just only Marvel could pull off. Okay. We got in one episode, and this was, what did they actually, what was the official title? Let me look at that real quick here. I got it. What if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? Not the Star-Lord, a Star-Lord. And what I love about it is it's such a simple premise, which I'm not sure who would have come up with it, because it doesn't feel as natural as, say, the Peggy Carter one, because Peggy was there when the serum was injected. It makes sense. You know, they could have done, what if Howard Stark was the super soldier, but what if Peggy Carter got the super soldier serum? Makes sense. It fits. This one feels like it's a stretch, other than I think there's an age similarity between the two characters, between T'Challa and Peter Quill, or something that clicked it for the writer. But we get this idea of, you know, and in the first one, it was Peggy Carter not leaving the room when she was offered to go upstairs. In this one, it's because Yondu didn't decide to do it himself, to look for the kid for Ego. He let Kraglin and Taserface, yes, they brought back Taserface. He let Kraglin and Taserface look for the kid, and they ended up with T'Challa instead of Peter Quill. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't one of them in like Ohio or Missouri, and the other one's in Wakanda in Africa? How do you make that mistake? And it's very simple. Is they were using a detector for looking for non-Earth things, alien things, and vibranium is alien. Vibranium is a meteorite that crashed on Earth, so they locked on the signal of vibranium and ended up finding T'Challa, who was about the right age, and even though he doesn't look anything like Peter Quill, they kept him. And T'Challa was all about wanting to explore the world, so he went with them. And that was the whole premise for the story. But what Marvel got was incredible, in the sense that they basically got to play with the whole cosmic lineup in a short episode. So let me pause for a second here and point out that JD put it up here. Friday, we have so much cosplay. The original art experience, that's the one with Nick Barucci. Friday Night Live with Nancy McCann from Comics Unlimited in Tennessee. And plus some great flashback interviews. Okay, So there is a great lineup for tomorrow. Like I said, I just didn't happen to know what they were. So definitely come back tomorrow for that. But let's keep with What If. Yeah, the experience, and Dan Wickline has the day off. Hey, Friday's my only real day off, so I enjoy it while I get it. But just look at, we start off by getting T'Chaka and T'Challa talking, and they bring John Connie back to do the voice of T'Chaka. And of course, we got Chadwick Boseman as the voice of T'Challa. And this was probably the bittersweet part of it, is that it's such a fun, light, amazing episode with so many characters and stuff. But at the same time, you know this is one of the last performances of Chadwick Boseman, and that is heartbreaking to know that even at the end when he was dealing with the cancer and stuff, he still put so much of himself into this character and obviously had fun doing it. So it's kind of heartbreaking, but just about everybody came back. They bring in all the big characters from the cosmic, from the big and the small, and just about everybody came back. Of course, Jeffrey Wright is the Watcher, as the narrator, but again, Boseman and Connie back as T'Challa and T'Chaka. Michael Rooker's back as Yondu. Sean Gunn back as Kraglin. Chris Sullivan's back as Taserface. Daimon Hansu is back as Korath. Karen Gillian is Nebula. Benicio del Toro comes back as the Collector. Josh Brolin as Thanos. A tiny little part at the end for Kurt Russell as Ego, but he comes back just to voice it. Seth Green shows up to voice Howard the Duck. Ophelia Lovebond returns as Karina, the Collector's assistant. Denai Guerrari shows up to do, I think it's one line for Okoye. Carrie Coon is back as Proxima Midnight. Tom Von Lawler is back as Ebony Maw. And the only person they couldn't get, and it's not because they didn't try, but there was some kind of confusion between him and his agent, is the voice of Drax. Of course, Dave Bautista. He didn't return, but they got Fred Tatasciore, who does a lot of voices for all the different stuff. He does the Hulk voice a lot. He came back, or he did the voice of that. And then I don't think Brian T. Delaney did the voice of Peter Quill, but he has like one line. Simply says, we're closed. Other than that, all these huge names came back to do this episode. And what we get is kind of a cosmic heist. The idea is that T'Challa stayed with the Ravengers, and instead of trying to make his own name as Star-Lord and doing all these bad things, he convinces them to become more like Robin Hood, to help things, rob from the rich to give to the poor. When we get that opening scene of him going for the Power Stone on Morag, Korath's response to him isn't, you may know me as Star-Lord. Who? It's more, oh my God, you're Star-Lord. Oh, I am so excited. This is awesome. Oh, but we have to fight. Should I use my gun? I shouldn't use the gun. I shouldn't. And that just starts it off. He is such a fanboy of Star-Lord. And that just shows the difference of T'Challa with the Ravengers versus Peter Quill. And it just takes off from there. And his attitude and his ability to connect to people. We find out later on that he was able to sit Thanos down and convince him that there were better ways to save the galaxy than genocide. Now, mind you, and to Brian's comment, Thanos was still a fan of the genocide option. He still thought it was very efficient, and it wasn't technically genocide because it was random. So you weren't just, it was a random thing. So Thanos still liked his initial plan, but he agreed that there were better ways to do it. And Thanos just kind of became part of the Ravagers. And it just grew from there. Korath ends up part of the Ravagers. And Nebula comes to them and is obviously on good basis with T'Challa. She calls him Cha-Cha. So and it seems like there might be a little romance going on between them, maybe, but it doesn't get played out that much. But then when Thanos... Yeah, Brian puts a great point there. Everyone was living happy, fulfilling lives, which you have to wonder, how does that make Peter Quill feel? You know, that his, you know, you take him out, you put T'Challa in, and suddenly the galaxy is this great, happy place. You know, Thanos is happy just hanging out with the Ravagers. Drax doesn't have to hunt down Ronan because his family survived. T'Challa saved his planet. His wife and kids are fine. Now he's just a bartender who wants a selfie with T'Challa. I mean, it is fascinating where they went with it. But they also, you know, oh yeah, Peter Quill ends up mopping at a Dairy Queen. So we still get the ego trying to find his son thing, which we get the hint at the end, may be the end of the Earth. But it's just this, it's a really fun story. And you could see the actors all getting to play these parts that they're known for now, but in a slightly different way. Even Benicio del Toro, his character as the Collector ends up kind of taking over Thanos' role as the big bad in the galaxy. And he gets the Black Order to be his henchman. And his collection seems to be bigger even. And he wants T'Challa because he's the last, or he's this prince of Wakanda. And when he goes missing, of course, T'Chaka turns the technology of Wakanda because they know he was taken off into space. So they turn the technology of Wakanda into becoming a spacefaring race. Or maybe they'd already been, because there's some similarities in technology. But now we're finding the ships, the Wakandan ships out in space. The Collector has a Wakandan ship in his collection, but it's a spacefaring ship. And that's where T'Challa finds out, oh, wait, my people are still alive, because Yondu kind of lied to him, which he doesn't actually get that upset about either. It's fascinating. But overall, it's a really interesting take, and it's fun. That's the biggest thing, is it's just such a fun exploration of these characters. JD says a lot of people were mad at Peter for screwing up the plan in Infinity War. Maybe they thought people would be into making him a little humiliation. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Peter needs some help. He's a bit narcissistic. First thing, you're not allowed to give yourself a nickname. That's the rule. You either earn the nickname or you don't have a nickname. To give himself a nickname, that's just wrong, you know? And the fact is that he had a connection with Yondu, but it's not quite as powerful as the connection we see between Yondu and T'Challa in here, you know? Yondu literally calls T'Challa his son. You know, he feels like he helped raise him, and there's a connection, and they back each other up. There's no, well, he left to go get the Power Stone. No, Yondu was there to back him up. So it's a pretty fascinating look at the cosmic corner of the MCU. Now, interestingly, I came out of the first one feeling like this was a setup for something, that this was going to connect, that maybe the tentacle creature was Shuma Gorath, that we were seeing part of what the bad guy is going to be in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Why are all the movie titles getting so long? Do they need to be so long? Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Is the Eternals such a bad title? I mean, it's just nice, short, concern. I think it's just Eternals. I don't even think they have a "the" on it. Just stop with the big titles. Spider-Man, No Way Home, and I lost my car keys, and I need a lift, and Uber won't answer. I mean, these titles are getting ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. This one felt just kind of like a fun side trip. Now, I think, well, we know that Boseman ended up doing 4 episodes. And I have a feeling the Star-Lord version is going to reappear by the end of this. You know, I think each of these episodes is basically introducing us to a character that's going to be part of the Guardians of the Multiverse. Is this character part of the same universe as the Peggy Carter one or Captain Carter? I would lean towards no. I think we're probably looking at a different. It wouldn't make sense if they all came out of one multiverse, because I like the idea that each change is kind of its own universe. And I'm hoping that's how they're doing it. But overall, I think these characters are going to be what's pulled together for whatever the ending thing is, whether that's Ultron with the Infinity Stones that we've seen clips of, whatever the big bad thing is that needs to pull together, or maybe they're just trying to stop a version of Kang. Who knows? But this one felt more like, I know there's been this kind of split thing with some people saying it seems like these were all connected and going to build up to something, and other people going, nope, they all seem self-contained. This one definitely felt self-contained, like there was no hang on. I mean, a little bit at the ending with Ego and Peter, Ego going to meet Peter, how he's going to react to finding out who his father is, and the powers. He doesn't have his experience with the Guardians to temper him. He may be worse at this point. We don't know how he was, growing up with his grandfather, how much Ego will be more tempting at this point compared to, how connected he was to his mom. Because, I mean, he lost Peter Quill lost his mom and then was taken into space. He didn't really get the time to grieve, to understand, to spend time with his family. Suddenly his entire world changed. So he had this very strong connection to his mom, and he had the tape, the mixtape that was the connection, the bridge to it. When you have time to grieve and move on and move forward, it might have changed him. So if he's got this rundown life where he's just working at a Dairy Queen and doesn't have much going on, and this big spacefaring god shows up and little G god shows up and says, I'm going to give you all this unlimited power and we're going to take over the galaxy. Peter may go, yeah, all right, I'm good with that. Let's do it. I'm tired of serving soft serve. I'm ready to go. So, but will we answer that question, or will that just kind of linger? It felt certain at the end of the first one that we're going to do more with this character of Captain Carter. And I know we've seen T'Challa Star-Lord and other things, but it didn't feel as certain. It didn't feel like, we're going to pick up that storyline somewhere, like it did with her showing up in modern day with Nick Fury. So I am but it was kind of interesting. Again, I'm really impressed by how many of the actors came back. In the first one, it seemed like they got a lot, but not everybody. They didn't get, Tommy Lee Jones didn't come back. Chris Evans didn't come back, stuff like that. But yeah, I think the overall, they're getting some amazing characters to return for even bit parts, like I said. The plant thing. Oh, good point. Yeah. JD says that he feels like the episode was to pay tribute to Chadwick. I'm going to disagree with you for only one reason, because this was written and all of that before anybody knew that he had cancer. He kept it quiet. It was only like a week or two before he passed that he let people know. So when they were filming this, nobody knew he had cancer. So I can't see it being a tribute, the fact he recorded all that stuff. Let's go back to the plant thing. Wow, yeah. Was it the embers of Genesis? And they threw it in the mouth of Coal Obsidian, and it started growing, and now there's all this life growing in the head of a Celestial. Yeah, there's a lot they could do with that. I mean, wow. They could just, leave it out there. It could just be a nod to the fact that Thanos eventually becomes a gardener at the end of Infinity War yeah. But that does seem significant. I'll give you that, Brian, that there does seems to be something going on with those embers. They felt like more than just a MacGuffin. I mean, they could have just been a MacGuffin. But the fact that they used them to get out of there, could the embers bring back a Celestial? And since they were living in his head, you think it might be tied to the zombies? Huh. Interesting. I'm not sure how that would play out, but it's a neat idea. Maybe it creates a zombie Celestial, and in doing so, he brings it to Earth. Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. Again, it really comes down to how much these episodes are going to tie together, or if there's just going to be some threat at the end that they pluck these guys out of. Yeah, terraforming a dead Celestial. Yeah. See, that's the thing with the what if is it's introducing these ideas that I'd kind of like to see them explore more. What would that be like? What would a dead Celestial being brought back or changed be like? I mean, they've been mining the dead Celestial all these years. That's what they're doing in Nowhere. Is it's a mining colony inside the head of a Celestial. What happened to the rest of his body too? How come we've never seen that? Oh man, now you got me thinking a lot of stuff. And the show's going to be ending in a minute. And then I don't have, I won't be back until Sunday for Popco the Writers. And that's going to be running around my brain for like 3 days now. This is your fault, Brian. Had to bring up the idea of the terraforming a dead Celestial. Man. But then you guys are going to have to think about it all weekend too. And then we can come back on Tuesday afternoon and talk about it. That's a good idea. I like that. What if was always a testing ground for story concept? Maybe this will pop up in its own series if the story has legs. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things that took place in What If, like what if Jane Foster got Thor's hammer, that then that went into the main comic universe and then is now going to make its way into the MCU. Yeah, there's been quite a few of them. What if Spider-Man became part of the Fantastic Four, which he has been now? Things like that. So yeah, What If has been kind of a testing ground, but is also an idea, a place to play with interesting concepts. So terraforming a dead Celestial, though, is an awesome concept that it really comes down to what the embers of Genesis do. I got the idea that it just grew life, that it grew like plant life. but I'm going to have to watch the episode again and see if there's anything specific about, or that might give the idea it could either create zombies or bring a Celestial back to life. And then, wow, how would the Celestials respond to one of them coming back to life? And what killed a Celestial? Man, there's a lot of questions there. I'm going to have to do some research. All right, got to cancel my weekend plans. My girlfriend's going to hate it, but no, got to do work. Thanks, Brian. All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up here. It is that time. Thank you all for joining. Brian, all of you, thank for jumping into the conversation. JD, thank you for running the board. Remember, come back tomorrow here on The Experience, where we have so much cosplay, so much SEW. The original art experience with Nick Barucci, where he tries to sell you things, and you're probably going to want him because he does really good deals, like some kind of insane deals. Friday Night Live with Nancy McCann over at Comics Unlimited, and we're going to run some great interviews that we've done on this network. So come back tomorrow, hang out over the weekend, and I will be seeing you guys Sunday on Saturday will be a replay of Pop Go the Writers, which means I have to remember to download it and give it to them. But by the way, if you get a chance to check out Saturday's Pop Go the Writers, it is one of the craziest episodes. It completely I lose control of my guests. Paul and Jim Beard just kind of go off on their own, and there's a whole slew of cheese puns. Yeah, cheese puns. That'll pop up, I think it's 6:30 Eastern time on Saturday for Pop Go the Writers. Everybody, have a great weekend. Get out and see Free Guy if you haven't seen it. Go see The Suicide Squad. Get ready for Shang-Chi, and we'll see you all next week. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.